Hey guys, I thought I'd start by recording a bit of a floor warm-up for you, since that's normally how we start our ballet class. But feel free to use this at any point in space and time when you feel like you need to ground yourself in your body and in your breath and just surrender whatever's going on in your mind through the floor to the earth. I think that's good practice for these days. So here it goes. I'm going to move into the light here and into silhouette, but I thought it was better for you to have a nice view out the windows rather than be looking at a blank wall. So wherever you are, lay yourself down on the floor and just take a minute or 2 or 3 or 45 or however long you need to. Maybe lengthen the arms and legs away on the diagonal so that you're lying in a star. And take some really deep breaths. When we inhale, we're going to fill the entire body balloon up with air. And when you exhale, release the breath and completely surrender the body to the floor. So it's inhaling to expand and exhaling to release and surrender. So you can play with that just by using your breath without any particular muscular activation. So you're really visualizing that your body's like a balloon. And as you inhale, you could send your breath to fill your body up. So the space that's being enclosed by your skin is inflating with your inhalation. From the top of your head, right down to the tips of your toes and out to the tips of your fingers, you fill the entire body balloon up with air. And then when you exhale, you release the breath out of the body balloon and allow it to deflate completely. And as you keep your awareness tracking through the body, just feeling if there are any places that are resisting the release. And if there's anywhere that's resisting the release, send your breath gently focused into those places so that they can expand even more as you inhale and release even more as you exhale. And then if we bring our attention to the back body that's in contact with the floor, and we'll walk awareness through the places of contact and the places of separation. And as I say that, I'm thinking of us here now separated, and this contact and separation, what's allowed, what's not allowed, what's enforced as being a bit of a theme outside of this floor warm-up. So maybe just something to investigate and play with for yourself, how you're responding to points of contact and how you're responding to space and separation. But coming back to the body, if you bring your awareness to the back of the head that's in contact with the floor, and be aware if you've got a bun or a ponytail or something, what that's doing to the alignment of the skull and the neck on the floor. And being aware of the space between the back of the neck and the floor, so that concave curve that you've got running through the cervical vertebrae that allows the neck to arc off of the floor. And surrendering weight through the shoulders and the upper back, being aware of the scapula on the back of the rib cage in contact with the floor. Send your breath into the back of the rib cage and expand it. Expand it and see if you can find even more points of contact between the upper thoracic spine and the floor. Walking awareness down the arms, being aware of upper arm in contact with the floor, elbow, maybe the beginning of your lower arm, and then a bit of space as you move towards your wrist. If the fingers are relaxed and curling, then you might have contact just between the first metacarpal and the floor, and then the rest of the fingers are curled up off the floor. See if you can just send awareness into the spaces between the fingers, the space that's being held by the palm of the hands and the curled fingers. And coming back to that upper rib cage and then walking awareness down into your lumbar region, feeling the space between the lumbar curve and the floor. So we move from the concave curve of the thoracic spine into concave curve of the cervical vertebrae into the convex curve of the thoracic spine, and then into another concave curve through the lumbar. And then dropping awareness and weight into the pelvis, feeling the back of the pelvis completely open, relaxed, released. Walking awareness down through the legs, feeling the little spaces that occur, and then points of contact down the back of the legs, little space between the knee and the floor, calves released, relaxed, open on the floor, a little space between the ankle and the floor perhaps, and then the heel dropping heavily into the floor, and the feet lengthening off the floor. And then if you can, take awareness down in between the toes, being aware of the spaces between your toes. And being aware of the space that's embracing your body. So walking awareness around sides and front of the body, and feeling the contact you have with space. So the boundary of your skin in contact with the space around you. And then bringing awareness to the 6 lines of energy that we've been playing with. So if you start in the center of your pelvis, and we've been imagining a little diamond in there, or a little petit pois, a little green pea, whatever floats your boat, sitting right in the center of your pelvis, or a little engine of energy. And from the center of your pelvis, imagining and connecting with 6 lines of energy. The first one lengthening up through the top of the head, and in opposition from the center of the pelvis, lengthening down and out through the pelvic floor. And then from the center of the pelvis, line of energy reaching out through the right fingertips, and in opposition down and out through the left toes. From the center of the pelvis, out through the left fingertips, and in opposition out through the right toes. And on each inhalation, we'll energize each line of energy, and on the exhalation, we'll release. So now getting into muscular activation, we'll inhale, and let's reach those right fingertips away from the center of the pelvis, feeling the scapula lengthen away from the spine, and trying to touch the side of the room, keeping the back of the arm in contact with the floor. Exhale to release. And in opposition, reaching the left toes away from you as you inhale, left toes lengthening away from the center of the pelvis. Exhale to release. Inhaling, left fingertips reaching away from you from the center of the pelvis. Exhale to release. Inhaling, right toes reaching away from you, lengthening away from the center of the pelvis, touching the side of the room. Maybe allowing your pelvis to share as the femur reaches out of the hip socket. Exhale to release. Inhaling and reaching the top of the head away from the center of your pelvis, so allowing the spine to lengthen. Exhale to release. And inhale, reaching the tailbone out away from you. So from the center of your pelvis, a short but very long line of energy reaching out through the pelvic floor. Exhale to release. And now reaching opposition lines. So right fingertips and left toes reaching away from the center of the pelvis as you inhale. Exhale to release. Inhale, left fingertips and right toes reaching away. And exhale to release. Inhaling, top of the head and tip of the tailbone reaching away in opposition. Exhale to release, and making that round one more time. Inhale, right fingers, left toes. Exhaling to release, initiating from the center of your pelvis. Inhaling, left fingers, right toes. Exhale to release, and from the center of the pelvis, inhaling, top of the head, tip of the tailbone reaching away from each other. And exhaling to release. Pausing to surrender completely to the floor. And feeling safe and held as you release your weight into the floor. Inhaling, reaching all 6 lines of energy simultaneously from the center of your pelvis, out the top of the head, the tip of the tailbone, right fingers to left toes, left fingers to right toes. Inhaling, stretching, 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 stretching. Exhaling to release. And again, inhaling, reaching all 6 lines of energy from the center of the pelvis and feeling like that energy could reach out past the boundaries of your skin. Exhale to release. And allowing yourself to curl over into an embryo on your right side, softening through the joints of the body, hips, knees, ankles, shoulders, elbows, wrists, fingers, toes. And then inhaling, stretching back into your 6-pointed star. And exhaling, curling over onto your left side into an embryo position. Feeling the front body peeling onto the back body as the elbows and knees come together, keeping the head released. Inhaling to lengthen back into your 6-pointed star. And as you do this, trying to maintain contact with the floor with as much of your body as possible. Exhaling to curl and inhaling to stretch. Exhaling to curl and inhaling to stretch. Take a second and get as long, as wide, as energized as you can in your 6-pointed star. Exhale to release. And curling yourself over onto your side. I'm on my left side so that I'm facing you, and you can see this next bit that we do. Reaching out through the top toes, so I'll talk right toes. Reaching out through your right toes and lengthening, reaching the femur out of the hip socket, and then dropping the right sit bone down toward the floor, which peels the pelvis into a neutral line in the vertical. Allow the spine just to softly respond to that drawing down through the sit bone and through the right toes so that you peel yourself up into sitting. This left arm is curving over into a side bend, scooping back down, back of the head to the floor to relax back into your embryo position. And then the right arm sweeping over into your 6-pointed star. And then I'll repeat, exhaling into your embryo position on the right side. Left toes reaching out, left sit bone dropping down, head as heavy as the spine comes into the vertical. Into your side bend, right arm carves back of the hand to the floor, relaxing back into your embryo position, and then opening up into your 6-pointed star. We go exhale to curve, reaching top toes, sit bone, and tossing over side bend, back of the hand to release down, and sweeping right arm into the 6-pointed star. Exhale to embryo. And the top toes, sit bone, spine curving over. Back of the hand to the floor, palm to the floor, releasing your weight. Left arm and left leg back into the six-pointed star. One more time, exhaling to curve. Toes, sit bone, spine, head, arm, tossing. Back of the hand, releasing, and top arm and top leg opening. Open your front body. Imagine that the ceiling weren't there anymore and you could receive all the delicious gifts from the sky as you exhale, curving over onto the right side. Left toes, left sit bone, up and over to release. Back of the hand, palm, releasing your weight, and the left arm and left leg coming back into your six-pointed star. And release. And then let's bring the soles of the feet together and just take a little seesaw with the pelvis. So rocking right to left, just releasing in the hip sockets. Taking your arms out at shoulder level and actively stretching through those arms so you feel a stretch right from the center of your chest, from your breastbone, and energy lengthening out all the way to the tips of your fingers. And releasing the rock. Bring the soles of the feet to the floor and open the soles of the feet on the floor. So grounding through the heels, being aware of your lateral and medial arches, spreading the metatarsals wide and opening the toes on the floor. So as if you were putting weight on your feet to stand. And release. And then just releasing your knees into your hands. Bring your knees up onto your chest. Bring your thighs up onto your chest, I should say. And then make circles with the knees in opposite directions. So stirring the femurs in the hip sockets. And allow your pelvis to rock backwards and forwards as you do that. Releasing the lumbar curve to the floor and then drawing it back to a neutral line. And then reversing the circles in the opposite direction, so drawing the knees up under your armpits and then bringing them together and circling them away from each other. And allow the knees to fall into your hands so your arms are straight. Feel the scapula drawing down the back of the rib cage as the lat muscles engage. And then continuing to press the knees into your hands, you feel a stretch across the top of the shoulders, keeping that energy out the top of the head and in opposition out of the tailbone. So you have a neutral lumbar curve. And then releasing the lumbar curve onto the floor, draw the knees back into your chest and bring your head up towards your knees. So you have flexion through your spine. And from here, release the knees into your hands again. Keep the head, neck, and shoulders off the floor. And we'll have a little curve through the spine. And then as much flexion as you can so the face and pubic bone are coming towards each other. And we take a little rock backwards and forwards. Like you're a rocking chair. So you're going to keep the tension through the arms, not tension, energy through the arms. As you keep pressing the knees into your hands. And you may feel that there's a little place where you don't have a lot of flexion through your spine and you kind of go like ka-plunk, ka-plunk. The idea is, as much as you can scoop through the front of the body, so feel from your pubic bone to your belly button like you're scooping ice cream. And then from your belly button to the base of the sternum, scooping. From the base of the sternum to the top of the sternum, scooping. So you're peeling the abdominals back toward the spine, which allows you to access more flexion through the spine. And then rocking yourself all the way up to sitting. You stretch your legs, take a little walk through your sit bones. So you walk them back in space, or you can walk them forward in space, but making sure they're right underneath you. And opening up the back of the leg. So being aware here of the length between the sit bone and the heel. So the back of the legs are long, but you're not grabbing your quadriceps. You're not hyperextending the legs and popping the heels off the floor. It's more that you're lengthening and opening the back of the leg, and you want to keep the quad and the knee released. Intertwining fingers and pressing the palms up toward the ceiling, feeling the length through both sides of the waistline and trying to maintain a neutral spine. So when you press the hands up toward the ceiling, we don't want to pop the rib cage open. Keep the front of the ribs easy, keeping the breastbone soft. You can allow the shoulder blades to slide up toward the ears to lengthen through the top of the lat muscle. And then just folding yourself forward over your legs. So keeping the energy out the top of the head, not the tailbone. And then releasing all the way forward. And as you're hanging forward over your legs, bringing awareness right to the top of your spine, to the base of your skull. And then the idea here is, instead of stretching and forcing, we want to release and relax into the stretch. Release and relax into the flexion in the hip sockets. So feeding the femur head back into the hip socket and slowly, gently allowing that pelvis to turn over to deepen the flexion in the hip socket. And then you can imagine you're sort of falling asleep in your suit. So as we get into our thinking space, we sort of hold our heads up. We can get into a feeling space, you can let the head fall. And here you can make teeny tiny circles with the tip of your nose. Smaller than you want them to be. So teeny, teeny, tiny that somebody watching you wouldn't even know that you were making little circles with the tip of your nose. And those teeny tiny circles with the tip of your nose help you to release right at the top of your spine, the base of the skull, and then release the muscles all the way down on either side of your spine, right down into the sacrum, which allows your upper body to fold forward into the stretch without any tension or pushing or pulling or fighting, just letting go of the resistance. Taking a deep breath there, sending the breath into the back and the sides of the rib cage, and then slowly, gently rolling yourself all the way up to sitting. And then taking the hands on the floor behind you, bring the soles of the feet to the floor, and we'll just open the front body up to the sky. So as you allow the weight to fall back into your hands, draw the shoulders away from your ears, take a little scoop through the pelvis. So from here, drawing back just above your pubic bone, sliding your pelvis forward on the floor, feeling like your knees are on an escalator, moving up and forward over the ankles, and then allowing the pelvis to float up toward the sky, opening your breastbone, opening across the clavicles, inhaling to exhale to release. Coming to sitting to rest, or you can take the pelvis all the way back between your hands, super scoop through your abdominals, flexion through your spine, and then sliding forward again. So if you were sitting where we started, open your feet on the floor, ground the heels, lateral and medial arch, spread the metatarsals, spread the toes. Let weight fall back into your hands, but keep scapula drawing away from the ear so the lat muscles are engaged and the back is supporting you. Pull back just above the pubic bone. Slide the tailbone forward along the floor. Knees are lengthening up and forward on the escalator, opening the front body. And at the top, just check in with your glutes and make sure you haven't grabbed your glutes to stay up there. So it's not a butt exercise, yeah? Hamstrings engaged, but glutes as released as possible. And releasing to sitting, or keep sliding back and through. Super scoop. Let's just do that twice more. Inhaling up and exhaling through the hands or to sitting. And inhaling up to open. With ease and flow. Exhaling, scoop. And then bring yourself to a little crouch position. So, in your crouch position, if your heels don't touch the floor, it's okay. If they do, it's also okay. And releasing through the ankles, the knees, and the hip sockets. Heavy, heavy pelvis falling back down toward the heels. Deep flexion through your spine. So once again, releasing the base of the skull, releasing the muscles on either side of your spine. Being aware of the entire length of the spine from the base of the skull all the way down to the tip of the tailbone. And rocking weight forward onto your hands, super scoop through the abdominals, and then just opening the back of the legs. You're sort of in a little mini down dog. So once again, spreading the toes and spreading the metatarsals really wide on the floor. Being aware of the length down the back of the leg. So as the heels are dropping into the basement, the sit bones are reaching up toward the sky. And you can take a little bend through the legs here, a little flexion. Deepen the flexion through the hips, the knees, and the ankles. But imagine that you could keep the heels and the sit bones moving away from each other. So front straight legs, you can go like this and kind of bend the legs, and you feel how the sit bones and the heels are coming towards each other. Or we can go deepen the flexion through the hip, the knee, and the ankle, but keep this feeling of sit bones going up and heels going down at the same time. So you get a little different stretch through the legs. And then releasing the legs back into a stretch. And then deepening the flexion, but keeping the heels and the sit bones reaching away from each other. And then opening the back of the legs. We can rise up onto the balls of the feet. I'm slipping on the floor. And you allow the weight to come forward into the hands, and you make a super scoop through the abdominals, face and pubic bone coming towards each other. And then you drop the weight back into your heels and extend the spine. So drawing the breastbone toward the floor and the face towards your hands. So it's a rise up, round the spine with flexion. That's an exhale. And drop the heels to inhale to extend the spine. And rise up to round into the flexion. Exhale. And dropping the heels to inhale to extend. And rise up to round. And dropping the heels to extend. And releasing back onto your knees. Point the feet behind you. Release your forehead to the floor and relax your arms at your sides. And just take a second and completely relax in your child's pose. Send the breath right down to the pelvis, expand the sacrum. Send the breath into those hip sockets, soften the hip sockets so they can receive the femur head. Easy through the knees and the ankles. Easy through the entire length of the spine. And as you're breathing there, here's another image. You can imagine that your intervertebral discs are like little air mattresses. And as you inhale, send your breath into those little air mattresses and inflate them. So as those little air mattresses are inflating, you're creating more space between the vertebrae, which will encourage your spine into length. And then reach your fingers along the floor behind you. Make a big circle with the arms all the way around you, bringing your palms to the floor and taking a little stretch here. Fingertips trying to reach the front of the room, tailbone, sit bones reaching the back of the room. So you get a nice stretch right through the top of the lat muscle. Big inhale to expand the back of the rib cage. Exhale, slide the palms forward along the floor and extend the spine. I'm going to move back a little bit. So you have a nice long extension through the spine. On the exhale, scooping up into your flexion. On the inhale, lengthening into your extension. And on the exhale, drawing the pelvis back onto the heels and releasing down. Let's do that again. So sliding forward with your palms, inhaling to extend the spine. Careful not to take your pelvis past your knees or you're going to hurt your patella. Yeah, so keep the pelvis just behind the knees here. On the exhale,
the initiation, always exhale, belly button scooping in and up, lifting the hips off the front of the thighs, pulling back just above the pubic bone. So you're scooping space at the front of the pelvis, and then drawing the hands back underneath the shoulders, releasing the face to the pubic bone in flexion. Inhaling to extend and feeling top of the head and tip of the tailbone reaching away from each other. Careful not to collapse in the lumbar or collapse in the cervical vertebrae. So keeping length in the extension. That's the inhale. Exhale, draw the pelvis back onto the heels and release the forehead to the floor. One more time. Inhaling to slide forward, looking towards your hands. Exhaling to scoop all the way up into the flexion. Inhaling, shoulders away from the ears. Open the breastbone to the front of the room. Energy out the top of your head and out the tip of the tailbone. Try to separate your sit bones here. So they're lifting up toward the ceiling and then moving apart away from each other. And exhale to release all the way down. Circle the arms back alongside your legs and relax. Once again, taking the opportunity here to send the breath into the back and into the sides of the rib cage, into your lumbar region, into the back of the pelvis. And then rolling yourself up to kneeling. So you drop those sit bones towards your heels and peel one vertebrae at a time back up into the vertical line. So as you're kneeling, you've got head on top of the ribs, on top of the pelvis. Yeah? So a lot of the times we find ourselves in any vertical alignment having a little bit too much energy through the breastbone here. And when we go here, we're distorting the line of the thoracic spine. So place one hand on the other, place the hands on your breastbone, and just encourage the breastbone to soften backwards in space. So you feel an opening through the thoracic spine, allowing energy to move out through the top of your head. So this place, it's almost like a little energetic dam. Draw the breastbone up and forward, and then you sort of dam yourself across the thoracic spine. Soften the breastbone and allow energy to move out the top of the head. So let's take a little side bend, sort of a mermaid thing going on. If we have the left leg bent in front of us and the right leg in an attitude at your side, bent sideways, the right sit bone might be somewhere up here off the floor. So take the right hand into that hip crease and allow the thumb to curve over and backwards in space so that you can drop that right sit bone to the floor. If it doesn't touch the floor, it's not a big deal, but if you can encourage the hips to soften, to release the sit bone to the floor. And we'll take this left arm up and over in space and the right fingers lengthening away from us. Feeling not that we're dropping weight down into that right side because that sort of aggravates the knee, but lifting up and over as you exhale and inhaling back up to center. Keeping that sit bone, right sit bone dropping down into the floor. So inhaling up and over. And exhaling back up. I changed the breath. I think it doesn't matter. Exhaling up and over. And inhaling up. And exhaling up and over. And inhaling back up. And then let's just go and shake the legs out. It can get a little funky in the knee. Be careful. And on the other side, so now the right leg bent in front of you and the left leg bent sideways. And this left hand with the thumb moving up and over and down in the back to encourage that left femur to sort of externally rotate, soften in the hip socket, and release the left sit bone down. And it's your right arm that's going to carve up and over like you're drawing a rainbow. up and over your body, sort of sealing your little bubble around you, and drawing yourself back up to center. Inhaling up and over, exhaling, reaching. Now these fingertips that are on the floor, there's no weight on them, but there's contact as you slide them away and coming back up to center. And one more time, drawing the rainbow up and over as you reach. And in that side bend, send your breath into this right rib cage. Feel the buoyancy in the right rib cage. So there's no tension, no holding, no stress, but there's a lifting and lengthening and opening in the side bend. And coming back to center. And then again, lengthen the legs in front of you and just release your knees. So I think we'll stop there. And then I'll make another little installation where we go through our Pilates warm-up and get the core sort of activated. And then I'll do another one where we do a ballet bar, and another one where we do some more ballet bar. And we'll keep them going like that. See you soon.